back, everyone. So sorry we missed last week. Not that we have a huge followers yet.
Yes.
But just in case you do look at the weekly update, I was out of town. Had to take my wife down to Phoenix, Arizona. Stopped in Las Vegas. Don't go.
Hot.
Hot. 101 at 10:30 at night. And I'm from Florida, and that was hot. So, anyways. Yeah. All right. Cliff with ERA Real Estate, and
I'm Bex with Sun American Mortgage.
Good. Nice to have you back. Nice to see you, Bex. So why don't you give us the market report?
Rate updates, yes. So we're sitting right about where we've been. We're right above 7.375 is true conventional rate. Advertised rate you're seeing right now is 6.625. That's with a buy down. So let us know if you have any questions around that. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. On the FHA side, you're looking at true rate about 6.5%, and then advertised rate is about 5.99 with a buy down.
So for first-time home buyers, still looks like FHA is still your strongest, best bet.
Yeah, really good option for sure.
All right, so a couple weeks ago, I don't remember the date, but we did talk about seller concessions.
Yes.
We talked about how they can give you money for rate buy down, seller, covering closing costs, all that good stuff. So today we're going to focus in on a temporary rate buy down.
Yes.
In the industry, it's usually called a 2-1 or a 3-2-1. We're going to focus in on a 2-1 buy down. So Bex, for somebody that has never bought a home or doesn't buy homes very often, what is a temporary buy down, and how can you explain a 2-1 temporary buy down?
Yeah. So when we give you that rate update at the beginning, we say with a buy down, that's what's called a permanent buy down. So that buys the rate down for the life of the loan. A temporary buy down, or this 2-1 buy down, that's the most common one that we're seeing. The biggest thing that you need to remember is that you do have to have a seller concession in order for this to work. So if you've got that seller concession, awesome. Let's take a look at that. You can actually stack it. So you can get a permanent buy down. And if you have enough funds, you can get that 2-1 temporary buy down on top of that.
Which is really nice, yeah.
Yeah. So what that does is it takes whatever your true rate is that you've locked in, and it reduces the amount that you are obligated to pay for the first year by 2%.
So let's break this down a little bit. So one, again, as Bex mentioned, as a buyer, you cannot purchase a temporary buy down. The seller actually has to do that for you. So for a buyer, that's a plus.
Yeah.
So let's say they get an FHA, and you said it was 6.6, right?
Yep.
Okay, so let's just make it even. 6.6. So that's your locked-in rate, 6.6%.
Okay.
So your first year is going to be at what percent?
It would be as if you as the buyer are paying at 4.6%.
Okay, remember that. That's the 2.
Yes.
2% brings you down 2%. Good.
And then the second year, it brings it down just 1%. So if your true rate that we've locked in is 6.6, again with that same scenario, then your second year, your payment would be as if it was a 5.6%.
Okay.
And the reason you need that seller concession is because that money that is paid for this option is put into kind of an escrow account. And your rate never really changes. Your rate is always that 6.6. So you have to qualify for that, but you as the buyer are only paying a portion of that. And then the remaining comes from that seller concession. So it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for you to bring your own money for this 2-1 buy down. You would just make more sense to do a permanent buy down. But if you've got seller credits, it helps kind of ease into a higher payment. So for example, I've got one that I just did. Loan amount was around $360, and we locked in a rate of 5.875.
Wow, that's a good rate.
Yeah, so it was a great rate for this guy. With him, we did do a 2-1 buy down. So his first year's payment was about $2,500.
Wow, that'd be great. $25.
$2,500 a month. And then his second year payment went up by about $200, so he was about $27. And then his year 3 through 30, or for however long he remains in that loan, would be about $2,900.
Okay.
So it's a slowly step up to kind of get used to those higher payments. Sometimes it's really good if you know that you're going to be making more income in years future, or if you think that rates are going to come down. That gives you time to have an affordable payment before you choose to refinance or those kinds of things.
And I always recommend, in fact, Bex and I did several deals last year. I think all of our buyers got the temporary buy down.
Yeah.
They got seller concessions.
Yeah.
Which is really good because in your first year, you're going to want to buy furniture. We're going to do some upgrades. You're going to do you're going to want to paint all those things, appliances. So as Bex mentioned, this gentleman, he's saving about $400 a month, which is almost $5,000 for your first year. So that can get you good furniture or some appliances or anything. So definitely ask for it. Yeah. Don't just assume that they're not going to give it. It's a no-brainer, really.
It's worth negotiating for sure.
And just remember, too, that as Bex mentioned, your rate is locked in.
Yeah.
Like if you're at 6.6, this guy had a great rate, 5.8, but don't count on that for now. But 6.6, your rate for that, but your first year you will drop down 2%.
Yeah.
So let's just run a scenario, because that money, because the mortgage company is going to get their money, right? It's not like they're getting that 6.6%.
Correct.
They just put that money in escrow, and every time a mortgage payment gets
paid, they just do a little stipend from it. Yep.
So let's say that in a year and a half, okay, so a year and a half, the rate drops, and a client wants to refinance. Now, there's some money left over in that escrow account. What happens to that money?
Yes, that's a great question. So because it's coming from the seller, that is money that never disappears. So we would take whatever the principal balance is at the time you refinance, whatever money is left in that account, we subtract it from that principal balance. So you never lose that money. Yep.
Now, they're not going to write you a check.
Right.
But it will go towards your new balance, your new mortgage, or closing costs, or other things like that.
Yeah, if you have $2,000 left in that account and you owe $400,000 on your current loan that you're refinancing, we would reduce that loan amount to $398 in that scenario.
So that money never gets lost.
Yeah.
So it's a great. I mean, sellers are still willing to do that.
Yeah.
So just ask for it.
Yeah.
Even if you're not using Bex and myself, if you're a first-time home buyer, any home buyer, ask for that seller concession.
Yeah, it's worth negotiating. And then Cliff and I can run the numbers with you to know how much to ask for, what kind of offer you need to come in with a strong negotiating skill.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a 2-1 buy down. There's also a 3-2-1 buy down. That's a little bit more expensive, but that's just basically your first year is 3% off, and your second year is 2%, and your third year is 1%.
Yep.
It's more common right now, I've seen, to 2-1 buy down. That's pretty much almost 100%. But yeah. All right. Well, that's 2-1 buy down, seller concession. We talked a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
Again, we'd like to hear from you. If you have any questions about mortgage or real estate, put it in the comments. Give us a shout out, and we would love to talk about any questions that you guys have.
For sure.
Okay. Thanks. We'll see everybody next week.
See ya.
Bye.